before there was writing, before there were books, before a single word had ever been carved into stone or pressed onto a page. There was sound. Somewhere in the river valleys of ancient India, a sage sat in silence, and in that silence, something arrived. Not invented, not composed, heard. The ancient rishis did not claim to have written the Vedas. They claimed to have received them, sound existing before the one who spoke it, truth existing before the mind that perceived it. For over 3,000 years, this knowledge would travel from mouth to ear, from teacher to student, without a single letter written down. No parchment, no ink, only breath, memory, and devotion. Today, we call this body of knowledge the Vedas, but that word barely begins to explain what they are. What exactly are the Vedas? And why does something composed in the Bronze Age still shape how 1 billion people understand the universe today? The word Veda comes from the Sanskrit root vid, to know, not knowledge as information, knowledge as direct seeing, the kind of knowing that arrives whole, the way light arrives in a dark room. In the Hindu tradition, the Vedas are called Shruti, that which is heard. This is a crucial distinction. Most sacred texts in human history were written by someone, a prophet, a scribe, a council of elders. The Vedas were not. Hindu tradition holds that the Vedas are a Purusha, without human author. Not myths written about the divine, but sound itself, cognized by sages whose minds had become still enough, clear enough, to perceive it directly. The rishis were not authors, they were witnesses. This is why precision mattered so much. If the Vedas were not composed but received, then changing a single syllable wasn't an edit. It was a corruption of something greater than any human mind. That single idea, that sound itself could carry a kind of truth older than language, is the key that unlocks everything else the Vedas contain. The Vedas are not one book, they are 4, and each one exists for a different purpose. The oldest of the 4, and the oldest surviving text in any Indo-European language. Over 1,000 hymns, 10,600 verses, organized into 10 books called mandalas. The Rigveda is poetry addressed to the forces that ancient people watched shape their world. Agni, the fire that transforms. Indra, the storm that breaks the drought. Varuna, the order beneath the stars. These hymns are not simple prayers for rain or protection. Buried inside them are some of the oldest philosophical questions ever written down. In the 10th book, one hymn dares to ask what existed before the universe began, and admits astonishingly that perhaps not even the gods know the answer. Where the Rigveda is poetry, the Yajurveda is instruction. It is the priest's manual, the exact words spoken at the sacrificial fire, timed precisely to each ritual action. It exists in 2 major forms: a black Yajurveda, where verse and commentary are woven together, and a white Yajurveda, where they stand cleanly apart. Buried in its final, youngest layers are some of the most influential Upanishads ever composed. Proof that even a manual for ritual precision eventually opens into pure philosophy. The smallest of the 4 Vedas, and in many ways the most beautiful. Nearly all of its verses are drawn from the Rigveda, but transformed, turned into melody. The Samaveda is not new poetry, it's the Rigveda given a singing voice, chanted by the priests who led the sacred rites. This is the root of something enormous. The Samaveda is considered the foundation of Indian classical music. Every raga sung today has a lineage that reaches back to priests, chanting hymns beside a sacrificial fire 3,000 years ago. the last and, in many ways, the most human of the four. Where the other three orbit the fire altar and the priestly class, the Atharvaveda steps into ordinary life. Healing, marriage, birth, protection from disease, even the anxieties and hopes of daily existence. It's all here. It's considered the earliest textual source for what would become Yajurveda, and it captures something the other Vedas don't: the texture of what it actually felt like to be alive in that world. Together, these four are the Trividya, and the fourth, the threefold knowledge of Rig, Yajur, and Sama, joined by the earthbound wisdom of the Atharva. 4 different doors into the same house. Each of the 4 Vedas is itself built in 4 layers. And understanding this structure is like discovering that a temple has a foundation, walls, a roof, and a spire, each serving the one above it. The Samhitas, the mantras themselves, the hymns and verses, the oldest layer, the raw material, the Brahmanas, commentary, explanations of what each ritual means and precisely how it must be performed. The Aranyakas, the forest texts, meditations composed for those who had left ritual life behind for contemplation in the wilderness. Texts that begin to turn ritual into symbol, the Upanishads, the final layer, and the one that would change philosophy forever. This is the architecture. You begin with sound, move into ritual, then into symbolic meaning, and finally arrive at pure, metaphysical inquiry. It's the exact shape of a spiritual life. Action first, then understanding, then transcendence. Long before karma became a household word, the Vedas already contained a concept doing similar work: RTA. Arta is cosmic order, the principle that makes the sun rise on schedule, the seasons turn in sequence, and moral action carry consequence. It is the idea that the universe is not chaos governed by the whims of gods, but a coherent, patterned reality, and that gods themselves are bound to uphold it. Ritual, in the Vedic mind, was never superstition. It was participation. Every fire lit correctly, every mantra spoken with the right accent, every offering made at the right moment. These were small human acts of alignment with the same order that keeps the stars in their courses. This is the seed from which karma would eventually grow, the understanding that action and consequence are woven into the structure of reality itself, not handed down arbitrarily by an angry sky. Something happens toward the end of the Vedic corpus. The questions change. The earlier hymns ask, how do we perform this sacrifice correctly? The Upanishads ask something else entirely. What is actually real? This is where 2 of the most consequential ideas in the history of human thought are first written down: Atman and Brahman. Atman is the innermost self, not the personality, not the body, not even the mind, but the silent witness underneath all of it, the awareness that is aware of thought itself. Brahman is the ultimate reality, the single, unbounded ground of existence out of which everything, every star, every self, every thought arises. And the great insight of the Upanishads, whispered across centuries of forest hermitages and riverside teaching circles, is this: Atman and Brahman are not 2 things. The self you carry inside you and the infinite reality that contains the universe are, at the deepest level, one and the same. This single realization is the philosophical seed of nearly everything that follows in Indian thought: the goal of yoga, the aim of meditation, the promise at the center of moksha, liberation itself. Long before Greek philosophers asked, "What is being?" Vedic sages in forest schools were already asking it, and answering with a claim so bold it still reshapes minds today. You are not separate from the universe. You never were. Here is where the story becomes almost impossible to believe. For roughly 1,000 years, none of this was written down. And yet the Rigveda survives today essentially without variant readings. A single, unified text, preserved across 3 millennia, letter for letter, tone for tone. How? The rishis developed one of the most sophisticated memory systems in human history. Students didn't simply memorize the hymns in order. They learned them forward, then backward, then in shifting, overlapping patterns, pairs of words recombined and re-recited, called krama-patha. Groups of 3, interlinked and repeated, called gana-patha. Every method designed to force the mind to hold the text from every possible angle so that no single point of failure could ever corrupt it. This wasn't about content alone. Vedic pitch accent, the precise musical tone of each syllable, was preserved with the same rigor as the words themselves, because in the Vedic understanding, sound was the meaning. Change the tone, and you hadn't just mispronounced a word. You had broken the mantra's power. Students lived with their teachers for years in Gurukul, households of learning, absorbing not just verses but a way of life built entirely around exact transmission. In 2003, UNESCO recognized this achievement for what it is: a masterpiece of oral and intangible human heritage, not a curiosity, not folklore, one of the most rigorous educational technologies ever devised by any civilization, anywhere, at any point in history, built not from writing, but from breath, memory, and an unwavering devotion to precision. So, what exactly are the Vedas? They are poetry to the forces that shape existence, a manual for sacred ritual, a treasury of the world's oldest surviving music, a guide to the struggles of ordinary life, and in their final and deepest layer, a philosophical inquiry so radical, it proposed that the self and the infinite are not two things but one. They are also proof of something almost unbelievable about the human mind. That an entire civilization once trusted memory over ink, and that trust preserved a body of knowledge across 3,000 years without a single page. The Vedas never claimed to be the last word. They called themselves what was heard, an invitation to listen again, to sit in the same silence the rishis once sat in, and ask the same questions they asked beneath a sky none of us have ever truly stopped looking up at. What existed before the universe began? Who or what truly knows? Perhaps, as the Rigveda itself admits, only the silence knows for certain. Before you go, I want to take a moment to say something from the heart. To everyone who has joined this channel as a member this month, thank you. Truly, you are not just supporting a channel, you are helping keep these ancient stories alive, carrying them forward the same way they have been carried for thousands of years, from one generation to the next. Every hymn, every documentary, every hour spent researching these sacred traditions exists because people like you believe this knowledge deserves to be seen, heard, and remembered. So to our newest members, welcome to this journey. You are now part of a community devoted to preserving and sharing the wisdom of India and Hinduism with the world. If you enjoyed this documentary, consider joining them. Every bit of support helps this channel keep telling these stories the way they deserve to be told. Until next time, may you walk in light and truth.